Hello, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Lucy Jordan. I'm one of the co-directors of the new SSILP HKU-UBS Sustainable and Social Innovation Leadership Program. And we are really excited to welcome you to this fifth and final of our taster sessions, which is a kind of ramp lead up to the rolling out of our new curriculum program in 2023. So today we are talking about sustainability. And we have with us a couple of really great speakers with different perspectives. So we have a practitioner perspective, and we also have a distinguished academic perspective. And I'm really looking forward to their sharing and then, some discussion about that. But before we actually jump into their sharing, I want to ask quickly, in the chat, I'm putting through a Mentimeter, which is, I want to hear from you all about what does sustainability mean to you? And so that hopefully you can, click on that there, and we can take a quick minute to see what people's ideas are. Is it showing the right screen? Yes, okay, I'm just checking. So please, if people wouldn't mind entering your thoughts about what sustainability means to you, that would be excellent. And then we can move into hearing about it from other people so we can get your fresh ideas before we hear from the experts. All right, here we come. I like it's nicely colored in the Sustainable Development Goals colors, which is always good to think about with this as well. So let's just give this maybe another 30 seconds. So please, if you are hesitating, please maybe take a minute to just type in a few things so we can get your thoughts. I like this, not just draining, because it's very interesting. We don't have time for me to try to dig into that right now, maybe a little bit later. Yeah, okay, so we see a sustainable development goal there, right? The life below water. Definitely long-term obviously has a bit of conglomeration around it. So that's quite interesting. I think it would be great for us to see, what some of the other other people think. So I'm gonna close the screen so we can jump into other things, but of course you can still enter into this, and we can maybe take another look at it later if people are taking a bit longer to enter their thoughts. But I think the next thing that I would like to do is welcome one of our speakers to kick off. So our first speaker today is Professor Wai-Fung Lam, or I know him as Danny Lam, and he is the director for the Center for Civil Society and Governance here at HKU, as well as professor in politics and public administration, among other things. And he is going to share with us first about his, based on his kind of expertise and also years of practice in the field, about sustainability implications and opportunities for NGOs. So I'm going to ask you to share for about 10 minutes, Professor Lam, and then we will move on to the second sharing and then have a bit of moderated discussion before we open the floor to questions. And for everybody that's joining us online, I'd also like to suggest and remind you that you can drop a question or comment into the chat at any time if you're thinking about something. And then, of course, later we'll come back to those as well as have the floor open for questions. And I do encourage everyone to consider opening your camera, because we all like to see people when we're talking rather than talking into the black hole. So Professor Lam, over to you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Lucy. Many thanks for having me to share with some of my work. And Well, as Lucy mentioned, actually, I'm leading the Center for Civil Society and Governance at the University of Hong Kong. And the major purpose of that center actually is to promote and study how to attain a sustainable society. So, what I'm going to do actually is to share with you some of the projects that we've been working on, as an example of how we pursue sustainability. But before I actually talk about the project, maybe I answer Lucy's question, about what do we mean by sustainability. It's my definition. It's a very simple one, actually. Sustainability to me actually is about retaining and replenishing the foundation for continued development of human society. And so it's more than the environment, because many people consider sustainability is about the environment, but I think it is more than that, actually. It is, in fact, about how to protect the environment, of course, but it's also about how to build a resilient community and how to enhance our economic productivity. So there are 3 dimensions, at least, to me, that, constitute the foundation for continued development of human society. And so Lucy mentioned the UN SDG. Actually, the SDG pretty much summarizes very nicely the action areas and also the target, through which we could actually attain a sustainable society. Now, there are 2 major points to that definition. The first point is that sustainability is a very multifaceted concept, but the key point is not really that, it's almost about everything. The key point is that, those dimensions, the environment, the economic and social dimensions, actually, they are very closely interconnected in a way that, we cannot consider any one of them independent of the others, right? So say, for example, when we talk about zero carbon, say, for example, we also need to pay attention to the so-called transitional justice. And instead of talking only about poverty alleviation, we need to explore economic activities that would not compromise the environment. So I think it's very important that, it's not really about, okay, a sort of a summation of the environment, social, and economic. All these dimensions are interrelated, and actually we need to have a more sort of the integrated sort of thinking about thinking the problem. So I think that's the first point. Now, the second point I think is even more important, is that, given the complexity of sustainability, I guess, the key to a sustainable society actually is the very strong collaboration across different sectors, right? So it's not really about only the government doing things, or only the NGOs are doing things, or only the corporate sectors are doing things. Actually, instead, we are talking about, how to build this sort of a very strong partnership. And then, building partnership is easier said than done, but then the fact is that it holds the key to success, of sustainable society. So now these 2 are very important points that I think they are most relevant to our NGO friends, because I think the NGOs actually are playing a very important role, in that, configurations in the pursuit of sustainability. Now, then let me move on to talk about a little bit about, 2 of the projects that my center has been working on. The first project is about rural sustainability, in one of the villages in Hong Kong. I'm not sure that how many of the hikers in the group actually, we all know that. Okay, all right, wonderful, wonderful. It's very interesting. Actually, Hong Kong is a very commercial society, but then it's also very green. 70% of our land actually is green area. And so, we do have a lot of, hikers, who love the environment, love the nature and everything. And then, I'm not sure that you guys are aware, but, Hong Kong's so-called natural environment actually has a very good so-called biodiversity. And more importantly, other than the so-called biodiversity, our rural area also has very good cultural value, because, we have more than 700 villages in Hong Kong. And those villages actually embody the so-called cultural heritage of our territory. So how to sort of preserve or conserve the rural area actually is a very important issue to me, actually. And now the Hong Kong government, has been, how should I put it, the more conventional way the government try to protect the green area is to use the so-called zoning law. and try to put much of the green area as part of the so-called country park. They have the country park ordinance, so everything in the country park actually would be preserved, so to speak. Meaning what? Meaning that the economic or development activities would not be not allowed, but would not be encouraged, in the country park areas. And I think it successfully preserved the green, of Hong Kong. But then for those hikers, when you hike in the countryside, actually, you may notice that actually you see a very green area, but you don't see many vibrant villages. You see the houses, but those houses are mostly abandoned. And there are not many real villagers living there. It's just like it's more like facade in a sense that it's very green, very nice, but no people. So I don't think that we don't actually. My colleagues and I actually don't think that that's the best way actually to so-called to retain or revitalize the rural area in Hong Kong. So beginning in 2013, actually, we started a project, in one of the very remote villages in Hong Kong. That villages actually had been abandoned, for a long time, so before we moved in. So what we did actually was to implement some of the what we call the social ecological sort of measures actually to revitalize the village. And now in the slide, actually, you can see that actually we are basically work on a couple of areas, in order to revitalize the village, other than, preserving the ecological environment, by doing research, by reintroducing fish species and things like that. We also try to build in what we call the local economy in the village, in a way that we actually reintroduce agriculture. But then the thing is that we didn't only introduce agriculture, instead we try to do it in a very so-called ecologically friendly way. That we say, for example, encourage agroforestry production. We encourage regenerative agriculture, and things like that. So other than preserving the so-called the natural environment, we try to build also the some sort of economic activities in it. Now, for the economic activities to be successful, of course, we need to build a community. And other than encouraging people to move back to the village, we actually create sort of the new communities constituted by people from the urban areas, right? So we have a very broad definition of the community. Other than the indigenous villagers, actually, we created, different communities of interest, right? Say, for example, we created some community of some groups of people who are actually the hikers, the artists, who are interested in fully utilizing the so-called rural resources. So that way, actually, we build we empower the community, and also we try to make the village not only a part of the green, but also a very vibrant community. And so one thing that I should emphasize is that actually as I mentioned, the whole project is about how to integrate the social, economic, and the environmental sort of concerns. And you can see that actually I can talk more later that all the measures that we adopted actually is about how to integrate the three dimensions in a meaningful manner, right? And another thing I want to emphasize is that the whole project is a result of collaboration. The inception of the project was a result of collaboration, because the project was supported by the Hong Kong Bank Charity Foundation, and the project is supported by the government. We involve not only the villagers, but the environmental NGOs and also different groups, from society, as I mentioned, the artist group, everything. And we also try to create the kind of awareness among citizens in Hong Kong about the importance of rural areas and things like that. So the whole project is about how to leverage resources from different sectors in Hong Kong to try to preserve something that is important to our society. So collaboration is the key. So also many of the elements of the project is about collaboration, right? So I just mentioned, say, for example, in building the community, we involve different groups, and also in say, for example, building the the farmers market, whatever, we try to also to build a supply chain and everything. So we try to embed the whole project in the broader community. So I guess, that is the key. I think we have done pretty well. Actually, we won the UNESCO award, in 2020. And we are actually working on scaling up the project, by building a consortium in our Asian Pacific region. We have been working with Tsinghua University, the Asian Institute of Technology, and also the National Tsinghua University in Taiwan, to put together some sort of collective effort, to incubate ideas for, and also the action, what we call the change makers, for the rural revitalization. That's the first project. I know that I only have 10 minutes, so I try to be quick. Now, another project I want to talk about is a project that promotes sustainability among the small and medium enterprises. As I mentioned, sustainability is not only about the environment. All the sectors actually play a very important role. In Hong Kong, actually, the big corporations actually have been, working, moving very fast, in integrating some of the sustainability concerns in the operation. But it's very interesting because more than 97% of Hong Kong's economic organizations actually belong to what we call the SME, the small and medium enterprises. So they are the majority. And so we think that if only the big corporates are working on sustainability, it's not going to be enough. So it's very important.
You have about 1 more minute, Danny.
I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. I'll be quick. Okay. So this project actually is that, we try to build two things. First of all, we try to build knowledge to enable the SME and also the slower movers actually to engage in sustainability, to play the role. And second is I think it's more important, is that we try to build the connection and the collaborative framework between the big corporation and SME. So actually we put together some sort of a capstone project in which the big corporates would work with the SMEs actually to develop and to implement some innovative sustainability measures. So I think the whole idea is, okay, again, we are trying to mobilize different sector and different parties in the community to pursue sustainability. So I stop here, and then I answer more questions if you guys are interested in those projects. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Danny. I think that really actually, it's a nice setup, with some of the, their perspectives from, especially from a kind of like a coordinating, like a node, I'd say like a hub, which is what I think your unit is, and, which is involved in so many different levels from like the micro, meso up to the macro, of topics to do with sustainability. And I look forward to our conversation after we hear from our second speaker. So our second speaker is going to be Mr. Willy Kwong, who is the executive director from a Plastic Ocean Foundation, which I have not heard of before we invited him to come join this talk. So I'm really excited to learn more about this organization. That's one of my favorite things about this role, is kind of, when you get to be exposed to new things. And I'm just going to also remind any new joiners that if you are interested, you can still put your answer and your views in the word cloud and the Mentimeter. So I'm putting it through the chat again, and we can have another look at that at the end of the session. This was meant to get your ideas before we start hearing from other people, but we still welcome your views at this stage. And so, yes, I think without further ado, Willy, I'm going to hand it over to you. And as you saw, I'll give you a kind of 1 minute warning when you're about at 9 minutes. And then, obviously, then you kind of need to begin to wrap things up. So take it away, please.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. So a little bit background of ourselves. So we are a charitable organization here in Hong Kong, and what we focus a lot is on blue recovery and also blue KPIs. So one of our biggest project right now actually is the Plastic Ocean, the film, which is on Netflix, outdoor channels, cable TV, and also ViuTV. It's a documentary, 102 minutes. And the other thing, we have been doing a lot of kind of installation artwork before the COVID, for the social movement. One of the signature projects is definitely the trend 2019, I suppose. 2019, we have a live scale well hanging in the IFC for a period of 2 months. So we entertained almost 150,000 Hong Kong citizens to understand how plastic and also microplastic is damaging the world. So this is a little bit about us in terms of the organization. So in the following story, the curation, actually we'll be talking about some of our projects and also how we see sustainability. So a little bit about myself. So I've been in the NGO sector for many years, Jane Goodall time, and also some of the, even in the rehab organizations. So I have a son of 3 years old, always want to be a dino hunter, fossil hunter. He travels with us in all the beach cleanup, in all sorts of conservation program. It's quite fun and also eager to learn. And lastly, I'm a biologist by training. So just out of my curiosity, are there any biologists in this room, or are there any of your friends are biology people?
Remember, you can always use the raise hand function down in the let's see, where is it? Yeah, under reactions. If you want to say like, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, we got one there, I guess. Oh, what? Look,
that's good. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So I hope we are the same kind of person, because speaking of biology people, we are those kind of nerd or freak that's focusing a lot on system. So this is how we, at least, or I see the world. So whenever we see a lot of data, we see a lot of phenomena, we always go trying to trace the system, the circulation system, water system, even talk about the immune system. So this is also how we see the world as a biologist. And therefore, myself, I don't have a lot of chemist friend, because chemists to me is kind of crazy people. They're always trying to break the system. So yeah, biologists, this is how we work, how we see the world, and also how we try to use the system to understand sustainable developments, or even the world we are trying to fit in. And therefore, to us, or to myself, actually sustainability is always talking about equilibrium, how we can make sure a system work. It's always talking about resiliency, how we can adapt to the change, the disturbance, how we can identify what's happening in distorting the kind of sustainable environments, distorting the system, and also interventions, how we can correct the system back to normal. So actually, that's also why myself, or even some of the team, are feeling so helpless right now in Hong Kong, because we see low system full of chaos, and we don't know what to do. But going back to what we've been trying to do here, it would be some of our projects. So like this. So Operation U is one of our projects we started back in 2018-19. We focus a lot on the mapper, most affected individuals in the shoreline area. So therefore, we most of our work is in Ha Bak Lai, in the northwestern coast of Hong Kong. So we work with the community, we work with the elderly people, how to enhance their resiliency to flooding. So speaking of this left-hand side photo, actually it's the Typhoon 3 a few weeks ago. In the city, there are no flooding. The city is no wind at all. Even some of the people are complaining why the observatory is holding up a signal free. But what we observe, what we find inside Ha Bak Lai is this kind of flooding at this level. So we support the people to do the electrical check. We teach them on disaster preparation work. So I really fully agree on Professor Lam in terms of the integrated thinking, because sometimes when we work as a science organization, it's really difficult for us to communicate or educate the local people, particularly if they are elderly. So this kind of integrated thinking also even down to our naming of our projects, like Operation U. So Operation U, if you are studying in Hong Kong, if you're familiar with Chinese history, Operation U is talking about an Asian king who used workshop, community engagement, natural-based solution to deal with the flooding caused by the Yangtze River. So we use this name so that whenever we step into the village, the elderly, the grannies know, oh, you guys are working on the flooding, and we say yes, because this is how we're trying to see this the most economic friendly and also the most efficiency way for us to educate these people. We have a campaign video, which I won't be showing here, and also collaborations. So we also work with IKEA Hong Kong, IKEA Taiwan to learn from them to get their expertise in dealing with all these flooding issues. So they have been helping us to set the lighting system. I'm sure not many of you have been into Hard Park Light, but this village is the only village in Hong Kong without, some of the area are without public lighting. So it's very difficult to think of metropolitans like Hong Kong without public lighting. So we work with our corporate our partners, we invite them in, we work with the village chief, just to hope we can educate people how to prepare for the disasters, and also bring their story back to the city to show at least climate change is real. So this is our project number 1. We also try different sorts of NBS electro-based solutions. So we have this project Prosperity, another very fancy name. Chinese people love prosperity, and that's why we use this name as our project name. But the story is talking about we are growing, or we are planting bamboo here in Hong Kong. Bamboo, apart from helping us to prevent flooding, the other thing is bamboo is also a very strong carbon sinking plant. The kind of carbon sinking capacity is up to 1.6 times of the ordinary trees we plant. And the other thing is they are not considered as a tree, they are herbs. And therefore they grow very fast. And also it can help us to do a lot of work and creating economic incentive for the local farmers. So this is the project Prosperity, where right now we have important partners like PwC, like Lush, and all sorts of corporates. So our story here. The other projects I would like to highlight here, to take a few minutes to highlight here, is the Green Collar Incubation Hub. So I guess a lot of you may have heard of the race charging scheme, which will be launched the next year. So everyone is talking about how we can enhance recycling, how we can make sure people are doing the right sorts of recycling. But the thing is, if you speak to the race recycling industry of Hong Kong, the middle age of the practitioner is up to 55 years old. And also most of them only got the primary school kind of educations. So the practitioners themselves, they don't understand what is free charging scheme, and they don't know how they can support the scheme to happen. That's why with our investor, with our founders, we have this green collar. We are trying to bring new blood to the industry. We have our perception survey to try to understand how we can do what John Lee wants to do, is to grab people into the industry by providing incentive, by providing skills-based training, or even a career planning for the young people who want to get into the industry. They can become a recycler, eventually become a manager, or even some of them want to do STEM, machine repairing. They got their place in the entire industry. So that's our green collar do. So some of our story, and also we have a pop-up store right now at K11 talking about the recycling industry of Hong Kong. So we try to do all sorts of ways to increase the awareness and also the incentive for people to get into the industry, because we just simply see imagine, I guess it's quite obvious. An industry with most of the people are almost getting to their retired age, no young blood want to join. Willy. Yes. And it will be difficult for the industry to thrive. So that's what we want to do. So the beach cleanup, we do all sorts of beach cleanup and also STEM education, how we can do the most effective way to remove all the debris here in Hong Kong. We have another NBS talking about using pearl, using oyster as a way to clean water and also enhancing the flood resiliency of the village. And this is the most important slide I must go through. We are always looking for funding opportunities and also volunteers to support our work. So maybe I will stop here for now and see if there are any questions. Happy to further discuss.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you for, speeding up there a little bit at the end and getting us just on time. So again, just a reminder to the participants, you can put questions if you want or comments in the chat, and we'll come back to you in a few minutes. One of the things that I wanted to do in discussion a bit with you all is thinking about this. Let's see if you can see it better. Let me just change I think we want to do it this way. Or is it? Oh, I love it. There we go. I think you can see it well enough. So this idea about sustainability, which I think one of the things I heard a lot from both of you all is about collaboration and partnership, right? I think in coming at the critical nature of that, which I think is definitely something which comes up in the literature and so both and in the practice of a kind of organizing node such as Danny's center, as well as Willy, the NGO that you're talking about. And I'm also wondering a bit about from each of you some of the challenges that maybe you face, in kind of getting those things together, I guess. Sort of there's the first thing about like how do you form those those critical partnerships and collaborations, and then secondly, how do you kind of ensure that the sort of momentum is gonna keep going in the direction of the mission. So I wonder if each of you would be able to comment a bit on that.
Yeah, maybe I give my comment first.
Yeah.
No, I think you're asking a very important question that we aspire to promote sustainability, but then the more fundamental challenge actually is to make sure that our organization is sustainable, and also the projects that we are working on, before even after we leave actually would be sustainable. So there are different levels of sustainability that you're talking about, right? So usually people talk about the overall sustainability, but then how are we going to make the project sustainable? How are we going to make our organization sustainable? Now, I really don't have the recipe or the secret magic for that, because to be very honest, my center actually is a self-funded center 100%. The university didn't give a dime to our center, so we have been working very hard actually to work with different partners to get projects and everything. We have more than 20 or 30 staff in our center, so you can imagine how much money that we need to raise actually just to to support the operation of our center. So you are asking a very very wonderful question. To maintain the project, the project sustainability before we leave actually. Now after we leave actually, I think that's why we have been working on how to really to incubate different stakeholders who would be able to take up responsibilities, right? Say, for example, in our rural project, actually, we, from day one, actually, we have put a lot of effort in organizing, different stakeholders. As I mentioned, I try to create different communities of interest. Those are not necessarily villages. There are different communities from the urban areas and everything. And I think it is important. And so that's why I said that, other than the environment, the economic dimension is also important, right? So in the rural project, actually, we try to create what we call the local economy. We set up a sort of the rural factory, not factory, it's a workshop actually, to enable those villagers actually to turn their agricultural produce into processed food, everything, So we need to really think about, how to maintain a certain level of economic viability. I think that's the key. So there are two keys, right? Economic viability, and also the ability of the community, of the stakeholders to be able to organize themselves. Now, as for our center, actually, we have been trying to be flexible in a way that actually we have been actually trying to reach out to different collaborators, because I think one of the possible biases that many NGOs have is that they always reach out to the so-called usual suspect. Right. But what I want to raise is that there are many people who might be interested and who wait to be actually approached. So in our project, say for example, the second one that I didn't have much time to talk about, the SME project. Actually, SME, usually people think, oh, they are business people, whatever, they don't care. But then, but they do actually, they do. As long as we can develop, the sort of the common interest. And there are a lot of possibility for collaboration and also for the resources for our center. So I'll stop here.
Yeah, excellent. No, I really appreciate that, that sharing, and how, again, like you touched on then some of the things about which are highlighted in our sweep of the literature about, there's not just that financial, stability on many levels, but also about succession. And I like that idea about succession planning, where it's not just about the leadership, but it's also about that, like, passing on that sustainability to the communities, right? And, that kind of, that sort of empowerment, community development function there. So yeah, a lot of really, really great things in there. So Willy, yeah, kind of back to you, thinking about, the point I made around, collaborations and partnerships. And obviously it really came through about how critical and important those things are. So, I'm curious a bit about some of the challenges and maybe, strategies to, to address some of those things that you may be able to share a bit more with us.
Yeah, sure. So to us, the major challenge, or the very first step always is to build the trust with the community, with the like the village, like the green collars. I guess this is also back into how we can deliver the programs in a the most effective way, because to us, although we are fully self-funded as well, financial stability is a tough question. But to us, it's not the most important thing, because without the community, actually, we have nothing. We have the science, we need to have the vehicles, we need to have people that also buy into the same vision and theory. And therefore, in order to build this trust, the most important investment from us is to how we can invest time to build the communication, to build the trust with the village chief, with the village people, to make sure that we are with them, we understand their challenge, because if we are just talking about climate issues, the village chief actually know nothing. But we are talking about how to make the communities thrive again, how to make sure we can create job opportunities for the retired farmers, or even the young people, particularly in this economic downturns. So I guess this involves a lot of out of the box thinking. Because even when I face my board of directors, they often ask the question, why, as a also conservation group, you need to take care of this kind of even some of the social welfare things. It's because of trust. We are not just talking about our own thing. We want to work as a holistic plan for the village, and also even the undereducated youth. So that's the most interesting and also the most attractive things for NGOs to work in here in Hong Kong.
Yeah, no, again, I thought of really interesting, I think, points in there. And I really like that point that you made about, I was just thinking about this going back to what Danny shared with too, about like, what's important about understanding the communities, and then kind of what we need to do in order to build the credibility, right? And then also, to be aware of, sort of the kind of inherent, perhaps, but on the research, right, it talks here about the north-south dilemma, but I'm also going to bring that in just to think about power, right? So kind of power differentials, which often exist, right, between practitioners or like between donors, right? And practitioners, but for practitioners and like service users, that kind of thing. So, I think that all of that is, kind of folded up and wrapped up in, in the ideas to do with, with creating sustainable and true partnerships that are really multi-level, with, and really engaging with some of the more, kind of marginalized communities, that are left behind, say, because of, rural urban divides, or, various other features that way. And of course, I think, like, right, we know that it tends to be those that are more, so like, say, socioeconomically disadvantaged, that are going to be more exposed, say, to pollution, right, for example, and also have less, maybe, potentiality and opportunities to to safeguard, kind of their health and well-being from, from some of those things. But of course, I think the ocean, to me, I love the ocean. So, it's always kind of, I think, a really powerful metaphor of how the ocean goes everywhere, right? Like sooner or later. And, I mean, the ocean has demonstrated incredible capacity to, I think, to clean, right? But like, for how long, right? Kind of like, and what a powerful ecosystem it is for, for livelihoods in so many ways, and for, for health, for hunger, all, for so many of the sustainable development goals. We had someone actually pop a question in the box, and then I want to actually move the questions to the speakers. But one person asked, and thank you for asking, where sometimes we assume everybody knows, what are the SDGs? Yeah, so there are the Sustainable Development Goals, and so really good, right? Oftentimes we throw these acronyms around, like we assume everybody knows what they are. And the Sustainable Development Goals replaced the Millennium Development Goals, which were kind of this first very systematic, targets that that the UN organizations agreed on, as to sort of guide development practice broadly speaking. And the Sustainable Development Goals, which we're now in, actually kind of like the the home stretch in some ways, because it's 2030 when ideally we have achieved a significant advancement in these 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and which underneath the actual goals, there are a number of more specific targets. And so one of the things, say, like in NGO practice, but also, I know Danny spoke to this too, that we think about a lot is how these goals and targets are used to sort of inform the practice models that we are developing, and then the way that we then may evaluate those things as well. And so having kind of good working knowledge about them is very helpful for speaking to donors, and also for organizing our frameworks of practice. And there's you can see there's a number of them on here. I think that given what both Danny and Willy spoke about, I think we could see how we could map onto many of these different goals in relation to aspects of the work portfolios that they were highlighting in the discussion. So we have a few questions here. Yeah, so the first one actually is to Willy, and then there's one that I think is a bit more to Danny, but of course either party can comment as well. So first, Willy, Eva Young says, well, thank you, she says, for the interesting presentation, and wondering about the bamboo planting project. How did you come up with the project idea, and how do you engage the local community in this process to ensure sustainability? Yeah, so could you comment on that?
So thank you, Eva. So the first part of the project idea, actually Taiwan has long been using bamboo as a way to anti-flood and also to sink carbon. So we learn from Taiwan, our colleague in Taiwan, they provide lots of very valuable insights for us to start the work here in Hong Kong. So for the local community, actually, the reason we work with Habak, we work with the Northwest region, is because the village should actually buy into what we suggest. We want to create this kind of environmental friendly circular village, and using Habak as the testing ground. And therefore, with the leadership support, actually, it helps us to create the kind of momentum for us to look for abandoned farmland or even the retired farmers. So if you ask me what are the major steps or the most important part, I would definitely say look for the kind of leaders that share the same vision. It will help you to pave your journey a lot easy in a more easy way, in a more easy manner.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks, Willy, for that. And Danny, we have a question from Ram Stewart about how do we encourage SMEs to invest in sustainable impacts during economic downturns? A really important question, right? When it may be seen more as a luxury or a cost. Oh, you're muted.
No, thank you. Thanks, Rob. I think that's the major challenge. But then we do see there are two possible leverage points. The first one is that we should enable the SMEs actually to explore the best way to get started. Because every SME is very different. They all have different constraints. But then when we are talking about sustainability, we are not really talking about heavy investment or things. It does not have to start big in a sense, because there are always small things that SME can do, and then I think what they need actually is the knowledge to help them to explore what are the best starting places for them. Say for example, some may start with some very seemingly very trivial measures to improve the workplace and things like that. So I think that's just the way that we try to proceed, And the second leverage point is that, we also talk about incentive. You're right. What is the incentive? Now, in our project, we did two things, actually. The first is that we try to help the SMEs to see the potential benefits that they're going to get, right? So, for example, if you use better technology, actually, eventually you'll get benefit, that's the first thing. The second thing that we did actually was to give them actual benefit. We try to relate the SMEs to the big corporations, in working together to come up with some, concrete sustainability measures. And actually, the collaboration is a very good business opportunities for the SMEs. They're very happy to be involved, because working with the big corps actually create a lot of business opportunities for them. So what happened was there are some business opportunities created already. So you're right. Incentive is very important.
Yeah. Oh, no, that's really, so what I kind of heard you talking about there, Danny, it made me think about first was that idea about helping them to understand sort of those longer term projections, which probably gets in some to the, I'll throw another acronym and then define it, the SORI, so social returns on investments, which is a really useful idea, for many organizations. But the second part being that thing like actual tangible benefit that they can see soon and quickly, right? And because again, right, especially in a downturn, right? I mean, we all know that that's where anyone can be likely to be belt tightening, right? So, and if you have more of a cushion, in whatever way, you're going to be less likely to have to do that. But so, and again, right, it comes up to that thing about partnership, right, and collaboration. So, that really embedding that kind of ethos in the work that way. I actually was just thinking, Willy, after I directed that question to Danny, that I'd like to direct it to you about, I wonder if a plastic ocean engages with any small, medium enterprises, because I imagine that you do. And I imagine, that it may be, a slightly different perspective or angle. So I'd love to hear more about that from your perspective.
Yes, thank you, Lucy. So to us, actually, the door actually lies at the second generations, because a lot of business actually at the kind of leadership transition phase as well. And there are lots of second generation already got the knowledge and also the passion in devoting or transitioning their kind of family business into a more sustainable way. So these young people, young gentlemen, ladies are very they're already equipped with all the knowledge. What's they're missing, what's they are lacking, maybe rooms for them to try their business models. So to us, we work with a lot of this kind of second generations. We help them to look for possible government grants to at least shelter them from severe failure. So I guess the second gen would be also a very important and also emerging room for us to get more and more SME down into the sustainable investment.
That is such a nice segue to this next question. So actually, I just kind of dawned on me too that if you would like to share your question, so Andrea Ritchie or Ricky, I don't know if you'd be willing to just share your question. I'm happy to read it as well, but if you'd like to share your question, I'd love to hear it.
Sure, thanks. Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
Well, it's a great session today. Thanks so much. And Willy, great to see you thriving at Plastic Ocean. So I'm Andrea Ritchie from Hong Kong Shark Foundation. I'm the executive director, and we are about raising awareness regarding shark conservation and educating people to change their habits. So, last year I spoke to over 10,000 kids about shark conservation and ocean conservation. Of course, plastic is a big part of that, right? Because it makes it very dangerous to eat shark meat, shark fin soup, because of the lead, mercury, and arsenic that comes from the pollution in the water. So I've tried for years to get the EDB to get more on board, because there are over 500,000 local kids that go to public schools, and none of them are being educated by these sustainable development goals. And personally, when I went and asked Matthew Chung years ago, when I was at a UBS event, actually, as part of our MBA program we were doing at Chinese University. I asked him, why are we not teaching local kids about these fantastic 17 sustainable development goals? And his response was, well, is it on the DSE exam? And I said, no. And he said, well, then we wouldn't teach it. I was just so blindsided by that kind of tunnel vision, right? And so I've done my best to, for the last 7 years at Hong Kong Shark Foundation, to educate kids, to make it my mission, to educate them about number 14, life below water, number 4, which is education. So I was wondering, is there any thoughts on how we can get through to the government that there's already a fantastic system? There's a total, there's a syllabus, there's a whole program that we can roll out for teachers to all start to teach about sustainable development goals. So how do we get the government more on board is really my question.
The question.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. And I'd love to, hear kind of from both Danny and Willy's perspective a bit about like, how do you, try to get the government wherever, right here, somewhere else, to do something new, how does that practice work?
Well, actually, thank you, Andrea. No, I think you gave the answer, because it's not in the DSE, so people don't care. I think you're right. The education system in Hong Kong is very exam oriented, and if it is not the DSE, then who cares? But it's also my puzzle for a long time, because I think UN SDG is a big thing, internationally. Even the Hong Kong government is talking about UN SDG, in some sectors, say, for example, the environmental people. But then the thing is that, I don't think it really trickled down to the bureaucracy. Very sadly, I don't think many education officers or even teachers actually have a very good understanding of the so-called UN SDG. So I think it's challenging. It's challenging. I really don't have an answer, but I would appreciate the kind of efforts that you guys have been making, because my experience of dealing with the government is that it's very difficult to really move the government unless you show the importance and success in a way that so if you or we actually community actually do enough, and to show that the real impact, say, for example, through a lot of activities and talks even about you guys, actually, the society or the different people begin to aware of the importance, and the government would jump in. The government is always responsive. It's my experience of dealing with the government.
So may I reply to that, Lucy?
Sure. At 1 minute.
Yep. 1 minute. Okay.
Yes.
So, we've experienced that the government is not interested in supporting such a niche group like shark conservation, okay? Well, what they don't realize is that actually sharks are so important to the ocean as apex predators. They maintain the healthy marine ecosystem. And if we lose them, actually there's that knock-on effect, that whole collapse, like a Jenga game. And so we gave up asking the Hong Kong government for money. That's just that's definition of insanity, banging your head on the wall, over and over with no result. So, we still go to local schools. I was at a local school last week, 120 kids, and it's great. It's just about getting champions in your school, right? Creating teachers who will teach this kind of stuff. But I have to say, I was told by a really big school, and I'm not going to say who it was, that my topic was too politically sensitive and I had to modify my talk. I was blown away. So, there's even more being thrown at us. And I would love to be a part of, talk more about this with other people and how they solve this problem. So please reach out to me, or if we can, take this offline, or if you'd like me to speak about this more. I have a lot of leadership succession is so important. And that is one of the biggest challenges. But the funding, I don't know if anybody else has had this experience this year. Funding has been an absolute nightmare, worse than any time. And it's just, if it's not children, if it's not poverty, elderly, disabled, children. It's not part
Yeah.
of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
We are really struggling in the environmental area.
And that's kind of the downturn element again. It's interesting. Yeah. So really, just quickly, I'm curious from a practitioner perspective. Thank you, Andrea, for sharing. And we can talk more offline.
Sure.
From the practitioner perspective, what your experience is a bit about trying to kind of push the government a bit in some directions, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Lucy. Yes, hi, Andrew. We should meet. First of all, we should meet and have a coffee. It's been a long time since our last catch up. So going back to your question, basically, to us actually, the most challenging parts right now, we do have offering SDG programs to school. We talked to some of the education bureau officer. The major challenge they cannot put UN SDG into the formal curriculum is because they just concerned if they put UN SDG into it. Eventually they need to put the Ocean Treaty into it, and then they become entering into boundless ocean of knowledge. So they advise us to trying to look into the major curriculum, the education framework, and try to develop the so-called school-based education material. In other saying that we cannot do mass education. We can only deliver this kind of program to schools that are interested in UN SDG or interested in this global movement. So this is the challenge part. And also speaking of the funding, I guess Lucy, I would also want to add one minute comment on this.
Sure. Okay. 1 minute.
Yep. Conservation has been always very tough in getting funding, particularly because of the very old-fashioned way how NGOs are being seen in Hong Kong, like community chest. If you go down into the community chest, the only conservation program they see is greening. So if you grow tree, if you plant tree, if you do some greening, you can apply for community chest. But if you are trying to advance ESG, advance UN SDG, you are not qualified. So the other thing is HKCSS, the Council of Social Service. They only support organizations that serve the underprivileged. So if you talk about climate disadvantage, no, sorry, you cannot be an HKCSS member. Because you cannot become an HKCSS member, you are not qualified to get the Hong Kong Exchange Foundation's money. But under the kind of Hong Kong Exchange Foundation criteria, they want HKCSS to fund projects related to sustainability. So you see how everything are so self-contradictory itself.
Yeah.
So it puts Angia and myself into this kind of endless loop of questioning.
Yeah. I think it's a really interesting topic. I'm so sorry that we're out of time, especially because I have to go teach first-year undergraduates about the Sustainable Development Goals. But I think it is a really interesting discussion because it's also really about sustainability too, right? Because it's about that thing about the next generation. And
exactly.
I think that whole idea, which we all know, which is the sooner you learn things, the more that they become, kind of a part of your life and opportunities. So I definitely think it's a conversation we should continue more. So we're going to have to wrap up today. We're also going to wrapping up this taster series, right? So this is the last one of 5 that we were doing. We have a few housekeeping things quickly. One is we would love to take a quote unquote group photo. Because we didn't take any, and we'd like to have one, kind of from, so make sure we all look, get your hair down, all beautiful. Annie, can you let your hair down, please? And so we'll take a photo, and then also we're going to share a link for I really truly mean it. It's a very brief feedback survey about kind of this, your engagement with the sessions and any feedback for helping us with our next phase, which is planning the new curriculum for SSILP. So we'll also follow up with an email about that, but I do hope people will take it to, really should only take you about 2, maximum 3 minutes. Let's do our group photo. And then I guess actually first, let's say incredible thanks, to Danny Lam and Willy Kwong. Sorry, I forgot to say that first. And also to everybody, who participated in, in offering questions and commentary. But I think we're ready for the photo now. Good.
All right, in the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, thumbs up. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. So yeah, I hope to see all of you all again in the future. And yeah, really appreciate your support of our series and your feedback and participation. So have a great day. Bye-bye.